Behind every innocent smile hides a dark secret. These 10 serial killers prove that evil can walk among us, undetected, and their twisted crimes will send shivers down your spine. Are you ready to dive into the minds of the most terrifying killers in history? Number 1. Luis Garavito. Luis Garavito, also known as La Bestia, has 300 confirmed victims, making him the worst serial killer in the world. Garavito initially confessed to murdering 140 boys between 6 to 16 years of age from 1992 to 1999. However, he is accused of exterminating nearly 300 people. The direct investigation into the deaths started when a mass grave filled with 35 young children was unearthed. The majority of the children murdered were boys who had been starved, raped, sodomized, gagged, blindfolded, and long-term tortured. After his conviction, Garavito was sentenced to the longest prison term in Colombian history, 1,853 years. However, Colombian legislation was adjusted in the following years, so that imprisonment does not exceed 40 years. They later resented his sentence to 22 years after he agreed to help authorities find the remains of his victims. This made him to be released on parole in the year 2023. Number 2. Pedro Lopez. Popularly known as the Monster of the Andes, this Colombian-born man was a serial killer found guilty of the murder of at least 110 people and was sentenced in 1980. But he said he killed over 240 people. This was never substantiated by evidence in court. Before that incident, Lopez was also convicted of auto theft in 1969, for which he was imprisoned for 7 years. Pedro Lopez, who was a victim of trauma and imprisonment, went on to murder young women aged between 8 to 12 years in Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru. He was apprehended in the year 1979 after 4 victims had been found. Believed to have killed a record-breaking number of people, in what is counted as the most murders of the 20th century, he was released in the 1990s. Number 3. Javed Ikbal. Child murderer and rapist, known as Kukri, Ikbal killed 100 of the street children by strangling them and then disposing of their bodies through dissolution in acid. He was arrested in December 1999 after sending a letter to a newspaper and was to be executed in the way predicted by the judge, as he told him, "You will be strangled to death in front of the parents whose children you killed, and your body will then be cut into 100 pieces and put in acid the same way you killed the children." But he was detained and killed before he could be put to death. Number 4. Bruno Ludi. Bruno Ludi was a German serial killer claiming to have killed up to 80 victims. While some experts estimate his number of victims at around 200 or more, making him the most dangerous serial killer in continental Europe, others note that many of the confessions were made under pressure from the police. Ludi was a vagrant and a small-time criminal with considerable potential for sadism. His murders, 7 of which involved sexual crimes, commenced in 1928 and went on for about 15 years. Described as mentally defective, Ludi was taken to a Vienna hospital by the Nazi government and underwent some medical experiments, which led to his death in 1944. Number 5. Jil Djeld. Jil Djeld, a knight of France, French army commander, and companion of Joan of Arc, was also a terrifying serial killer. Between 1432 and 1433, he was accused of kidnapping hundreds of children about his castle, where he tricked young boys into service to him. 5 years after his arrest for sorcery, he admitted to having killed over 300 children over 10 years through torture. He simply enjoyed murder, reveling in post-mortem photography, where he would sit on the dilated bellies of the deceased, having chopped their necks open to watch them breathe their last breath. On the 26th of October, 1440, the midsummer of his barbarous career, Djeld was condemned to suffer death by burning and hanging. Number 6. Mikhail Popov. He was a serial rapist killer nicknamed the Werewolf, who was active for 2 decades in Angarsk, Irkutsk, and Vladivostok. Following the confirmation of 22 murders in 2015, he agreed to 59 more, 56 of which were confirmed during the trial in 2018. In July 2020, Popov continued with his confessions of extra killings, with a new total of 78 admitted victims. He was charged with an additional 2 more killings in 2021 and another 3 in the year 2023. He was sentenced to life. Number 7. Daniel Camargo Barbosa. Serial killer, believed to have possibly raped and killed over 150 victims. After murdering them, he often stole their panties. He attacked young girls as if they were chaste. And 2 of the boomer Muslims, Suleiman bin Odeh, confessed to having killed 72 victims. He sodomized young girls in Colombia and was imprisoned but fled from prison to continue killing in Ecuador. They arrested him again in 1986, and he claimed, presumably falsely, to have served time in an Ecuadorian prison alongside more than 300 serial killers. Another one of Camargo's victims had his nephew kill Camargo in jail. Number 8. Ted Bundy. Criminal of America. In the 1970s, Ted Bundy was one of the most outstanding serial killers who killed women while hypnotizing them with his charm. Bundy admitted to murdering 30-plus women in 7 different states of America, although the real toll may be the highest. A master of deception, he pretended to be injured just to lure his targets into his trap, and then raped, strangled, and killed them. Bundy was harsh in his actions. Sometimes he went back to the scenes of the crime to have sexual contact with corpses. Having grown under the delusional assumption that his grandparents were his parents, certainly did not help Bundy's sociopathy. He twice managed to escape from prison, but was caught in 1978 and died by lethal injection in 1989. Number 9. Robert Hansen. Robert Hansen, known as the Butcher Baker, started hunting as a teenager after being sexually abused by relatives. Later on, his targets became women, especially prostitutes, whom he kidnapped, raped, and then moved deep into the forest. In all those places, he sought them like animals. It was confirmed that Hansen was in the act of slaying not less than 17 ladies. This year, one of his potential victims, Cindy Paulson, tried to escape and went to the police to report him, and he was arrested. They both received 461 years imprisonment, but one of the men died after 31 years. Hansen led the authorities to his victims, labeled X's on his map. Number 10. Andrei Chikatilo. Andrei Chikatilo was a Soviet serial killer who murdered at least 50 persons between 1978 and 1990. His case remains unique to date because Soviet authorities never wanted to accept that there was a serial killer in a socialist society. The childhood of Chikatilo took place in the period of the Great Ukrainian Famine, which also defined his activities in the further life. For instance, some of the victims he attacked and ate. This former teacher selected targeted students at train stations and bus depots and managed to escape arrest for several years. Released on parole in 1984 because the police got the wrong blood group to match with the crime scenes, he went back to his spree. He was caught in 1990 when he claimed responsibility for 52 murders. He was executed in 1994. We hope you enjoyed these 10 most terrifying serial killers of all time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more dark and crime stories. Thank you for watching.